I knew something was off the moment my 5-year-old son asked why Aunt Bella hadn't visited in a while, and I couldn't answer him without choking on my own breath. That was the day the cracks in my life turned into a chasm. What happened next shattered the illusion of my perfect home and tore through everything I thought I understood about loyalty, love, and friendship. My name is Rachel. I'm 36, a mother of 2 boys, and until a month ago, I thought I had everything I needed: a charming husband, 2 beautiful sons, and a quiet, happy life in Willowbrook, a cozy suburb outside of Portland. I married Colin when I was 29. He was magnetic in that almost dangerous way, laughing too loud, kissing too hard, loving like the world was ending. I fell fast and gave him everything, including a place in my heart I didn't know I'd been saving. Colin came with a son from a previous marriage, Matthew, now 10. His mother had vanished in a haze of addiction and rehab stays. I took that boy in like he was my own blood. Matthew was solemn, sharp, and observant. A child who didn't laugh much, but when he did, it melted everything. I was never just a stepmom. I was his only mom since he was 7. 3 years after we married, I gave birth to Caleb, our firecracker. He's the kind of kid who wears superhero capes to the grocery store and insists on hugging the mailman. Caleb adored Matthew, and Matthew, bless his old soul, let himself be adored. We weren't flashy. We had school lunches, bedtime stories, PTA meetings, Sunday pancakes. Colin worked as a regional rep for an outdoor gear company, well known locally, always shaking hands and flashing that charming grin. People loved him. Hell, I loved him. My best friend Bella? She was family. We met at university. She'd stayed in Seattle and married a hedge fund guy, Reed. Their life was glittering on the outside and hollow underneath. Bella used to tell me, in whispered wine-fueled calls, how lonely she felt in that big modern house with too much glass and not enough warmth. She came often, every couple weeks, and my boys loved her. And Bella, always bringing gifts, always taking selfies with Caleb, always complimenting my storybook marriage. But if my life was a storybook, the last chapter was about to be ripped out. At first, the changes in Colin were things I could explain away. Long silences. The tightening of his jaw when I touched him. Late-night texts he said were work emergencies. I told myself not to be paranoid. I had no proof. Just instinct, and heartbreak. Bella, though. Bella changed too. Her visits grew shorter. Her smile stopped meeting her eyes. Once, during lunch, her phone buzzed constantly. I joked, "What, secret boyfriend?" She just laughed in this nervous, breathless way, then changed the subject. But then one Thursday morning, a day like any other, I got the text. It was anonymous. Just a hotel name downtown. A room number. No explanation. My stomach twisted. I stared at it for 5 whole minutes, the silence around me loud and growing louder. I shouldn't have gone. I know that. But I had to go. I dropped Caleb at the neighbor's. Said I had a dentist appointment. My hands shook so hard I could barely start the car. I drove on autopilot. The address burned into my brain. The hotel was nice. Not too flashy. Discreet. I told the front desk I was housekeeping. Donned a supply apron from the linen cart by the elevator. It wasn't even that hard. I knocked on the door. "Come in already! I spilled my wine, and it's soaking the sheets!" A voice snapped. Bella's voice. It was like ice water down my spine. I stepped in slowly, heart hammering. Colin stood on the balcony, back turned. Bella was lounging on the bed in a red satin robe. Wine glass tipped, burgundy bleeding into the white hotel linens. I bent, pretending to clean. My breath caught when Bella sighed dramatically and said, "He's the only one who knows how to really touch me. Reed? That man can barely finish a sentence, let alone." She laughed. Not a guilty laugh. A satisfied one. "I've always hated how perfect Rachel's life looked," she added. "She got everything I ever wanted, and didn't even realize it." I froze. Everything stopped. The rag in my hand might as well have been a knife. Then Colin turned. He smiled when he saw her. That smile used to be mine. I stumbled out. Didn't look back. I barely made it to the bushes before I threw up. My legs shook so badly I had to sit in the parking lot for 20 minutes before I could drive home. Inside the house, Caleb was coloring dinosaurs and humming to himself like nothing had happened. But I had changed. Forever. That night I didn't cry. I didn't scream or throw things or text Bella the string of curse words that burned my tongue. I just sat on the couch while Caleb slept upstairs, and waited for Colin to come home. He walked through the door around 10:45 p.m., tossed his keys into the bowl by the stairs like always, and paused when he saw me sitting in the dark. His smile slipped barely. Just enough. "You okay?" he asked. Innocent voice. Concerned husband. I wanted to rip his face off and hold it up to the light to see what parts of it were real. "Sure," I said, tone level. "Long day." He nodded and headed to the kitchen. I watched his back. The man I had built a life with. The father of my child. The man who had kissed another woman, the one I used to trust with my secrets. Within the same hour our son was drawing dragons with sidewalk chalk. That night I barely slept. I kept hearing Bella's voice, jealous, bitter, entitled, like a wasp trapped in my ear. By morning I knew I needed more than just evidence. I needed answers. Not from Colin. I already knew his truth. But I hadn't figured out the message. The anonymous one. Who sent it? I pulled out my phone and stared at the number. No name. No contact photo. I dialed it. Just once. I didn't even know what I'd say. It rang twice. Then someone picked up. "Hello?" The voice was male. Deep. Familiar. "Mark?" I asked, stunned. "Bella's husband?" There was a pause. A sharp, loaded silence. Then, "Yeah." My mouth went dry. "You sent me the hotel room number? I figured it was time you knew," he said, low and resigned. My brain spun. Mark, the man who paid for Bella's yoga retreats, who once thanked me for keeping her grounded. He'd known. Maybe longer than me. "How long have you known?" I asked, my voice cracking. "Confirmed it a week ago," he said. "Walked in on them. Same hotel. Different room." My skin crawled. I imagined him watching what I'd seen, the affection, the comfort, the ease of betrayal. "Why tell me this way? Why not confront them? Why not tell Colin?" He sighed. "Because Bella's never been honest with me. Never. I let her lie, let her play house because I thought it'd fix itself. But then I realized, if she's gonna burn everything down, I might as well make sure the flames touch her favorite people, too. So I'm collateral damage?" I snapped. "You used me to hurt her?" "No," he said after a long pause. "I used the truth. You just deserved to know it." I wanted to hate him. But I couldn't. Not fully. Because in a twisted way, he'd saved me from living another month, another year, in a lie. He was the grenade, and I was standing too close when it exploded. The next morning, I thought it couldn't get worse. I was wrong. I woke up to my phone buzzing nonstop. Over 50 notifications. I clicked on the first one, then nearly dropped the phone. It was a video. A sex tape. Of Colin and Bella. Posted publicly. From an anonymous account. Room 407. The same hotel. Same sheets. Same wine glass. I didn't even finish it. I couldn't. The first second alone scorched my brain. It was vile. Raw. Unmistakable. Mark. It had to be him. No one else had access. No one else knew. I felt sick all over again. Not just from the betrayal, but from the humiliation. This wasn't just my secret now. It was the community's. The neighbors. Colin's co-workers. My friends. Caleb's future teachers. Every single one of them could see this moment, could rewind it, pause it, comment on it. By noon, the video had over 100,000 views. The phone rang again. I didn't want to answer it, but I did. Rachel. Colin's voice. Shaky. You saw it? Oh, I saw it, I said cold. I didn't know he had cameras? I didn't think he'd actually. Jesus, Rachel, I'm so sorry. Don't say sorry, I snapped. You didn't just cheat. You starred in your own demolition video. He said my name again, soft like it might undo what he'd done. But it didn't. I'm coming home, he said. We need to talk. I hung up. I didn't want to hear what he had to say. Not yet. Not while my private pain was being devoured by the internet. Later that day, I stared at Caleb playing with action figures and thought, how do I tell him that the dad he adores destroyed our family for a few hours in a hotel bed with someone he called aunt his whole life? I didn't know the answer. But I knew one thing. This story wasn't over yet. I used to think heartbreak was private. Quiet. Something you manage alone at night with a bottle of wine and a playlist full of sad songs. But now my heartbreak had gone viral. By the time Colin walked through the front door that evening, the video had been reposted on 4 local gossip sites and dissected in comment threads like it was a leaked celebrity scandal. Except the people in it weren't celebrities. They were my husband. And my best friend. Colin looked like he'd aged 10 years in a day. His suit was wrinkled, his hair a mess. He smelled like sweat and panic. He opened his mouth to speak, but for once, I didn't want to hear him. Don't say you're sorry, I said before he could even close the door behind him. You don't get to use that word anymore. He just nodded. We sat at the kitchen table. The same one where we'd shared anniversary dinners, birthday cakes, late-night takeout while our kids slept upstairs. Only now it was the war table. The crime scene. I didn't know Mark would. Colin started. That's what you're leading with. I snapped. Not the affair. Not what you did to me. You're upset that he recorded you? He fell silent, mouth twitching like he might cry. I didn't want his tears. I wanted the truth. And not the tidy version. How long? I asked, arms crossed. 6 months, he whispered. It started at a business event. We both had too much wine and we... No. I held up a hand. Don't call it a mistake. A mistake is texting the wrong number. You planned this. Again and again. While I was putting our kids to sleep. While I was folding your laundry. He looked down. The quiet stretched like a scream. We need to talk to the boys, I said, keeping my voice level even though my hands were trembling. Especially Matthew. You're not just my husband, you're his father. He looks up to you. What happens when his classmates see that video? Colin's head snapped up, real panic now blooming in his eyes. God. I didn't even think about Caleb. You never do, I said. He started sobbing. I didn't flinch. He kept asking if there was any chance we could work through it. If we could go to counseling. Start over. But all I could hear in my head was Bella's voice, moaning through a hotel room door, gloating about how my perfect life should have been hers. So I told Colin the one thing I knew I had to say. I want a divorce. He didn't argue. He just nodded, defeated, broken in a way that almost felt rehearsed. Later that night I called Mark. He picked up on the first ring. You need to take the video down, I said. I don't care what Bella did. I don't care how angry you are. But there are children involved now. There was a pause. Then a long sigh. I didn't post it to hurt Caleb or Matthew, he said. But Bella, she needed to be exposed. I wanted the world to see who she really was. She has a mirror for that, I said coldly. You don't get to use my children as weapons in your war. After a few more minutes of tense, clipped conversation, he agreed. I'll take it down, he finally said. Not for Colin. Not for her. For the boys. And he did. By morning, the original video was gone. But the copies? The downloads? The screen recordings? That digital stain? Still out there. Still spreading. Still haunting. I kept Caleb home from school the next day. Just in case. But nothing could stop the whispering at the grocery store. The pitying looks from the moms at the park. The texts from people I hadn't heard from in years suddenly checking in. Everyone wanted the tea. No one wanted the truth. And while the world moved on to the next drama, my life remained shattered in place. Then came the final blow. Colin handed me a file of paperwork 2 days later. Divorce papers. Signed. Filed. He'd even already found a new apartment. "I know I don't deserve to stay here," he said quietly, not meeting my eyes. He was right. He didn't. 2 weeks after I signed the divorce papers, Caleb asked me the one question I wasn't ready for. We were in the car, parked outside his school. He was clutching his lunchbox, his little legs swinging in the seat, completely unaware of the grenade he was about to drop into my lap. "Mommy," he said, voice soft. "Did Daddy stop loving us?" I froze. Completely. Like someone had cut the wires in my spine. I turned to face him slowly. "No, baby. Daddy still loves you very much. But he doesn't come home anymore," Caleb said, eyes wide. "And Uncle Mark said on the news that Daddy was bad to you. Is that true?" Uncle Mark. On the news. That was the twist I hadn't prepared for. Mark hadn't just posted the video, he leaked it to a gossip site with national reach. Someone picked it up. A viral TikTok account did a breakdown. And then someone else named Colin. Local media. Then podcasts. Then think pieces on community scandals and betrayal in suburbia. I tried to shield the boys, but it was everywhere. At daycare, a teacher had whispered to another staff member while glancing at me. At the grocery store, someone filmed me browsing pasta sauce. The humiliation was no longer private. So I sat Caleb down and told him something simple but true. Sometimes grown-ups make mistakes, and they hurt people they love. But that doesn't mean they stop loving you. He nodded. But I could tell the words didn't land. They were too neat. Too clean for a world so messy. Matthew, on the other hand, was silent. He hadn't said a word about the scandal. Not to me. Not to Colin. But that silence? It was dense. Like gravity in a boy's body. One afternoon, I caught him staring out the window for 20 minutes straight, eyes glazed. I walked over and gently touched his shoulder. "You okay?" His voice was so quiet I almost didn't hear it. "I knew." I blinked. "Knew what, baby?" "About Dad. And Bella." I sat down beside him, my whole body stiffening. "How?" "I saw them," he whispered. "Once. At a bookstore." He kissed her. "I didn't know what to do. I thought maybe it wasn't what I thought. So I never said anything." The guilt in his face broke me in half. "You did nothing wrong," I said, grabbing his hands. "None of this is your fault." He didn't cry. He just nodded and went back to staring out the window. But I knew in that moment that my sons weren't just processing a divorce. They were living through the slow-motion implosion of their emotional foundation. And I had to hold up the roof for all of us. So I did what needed to be done. I filed for full custody. Colin didn't fight me. Maybe he was too ashamed. Maybe he thought this was how he'd make amends. Or maybe, just maybe, he was finally learning what consequences felt like. He got visitation rights. Weekends. Supervised until the court was satisfied the kids felt safe again. But that didn't solve everything. Bella? Her life had started unraveling at record speed. After the video leaked, Reed filed for divorce, freezing all their assets. Turns out he'd already been gathering evidence for months: embezzlement, asset hiding, even falsified tax documents. Bella was arrested 2 weeks later for corporate fraud. No bail. No press release. Just a viral mugshot with smeared mascara and a wine-stained blouse. Mark, ever the tactician, had been waiting for that moment. He leaked the evidence directly to Reed's legal team. So she lost everything. Her money. Her marriage. Her name. And still, I didn't feel triumphant. I just felt hollow. There was no joy in watching someone burn when the flames had already scorched your own house. But the final twist? It came in the form of an email. Subject line: "For your eyes only." It was from Mark. The message said simply, "This wasn't just about revenge. There's something else you need to see. Something I didn't show you before. Meet me tomorrow. 10 a.m., Café Elio. Come alone." And there it was again. The weight. The breathlessness. That awful gut whisper that the truth had even more layers I hadn't peeled back yet. The cafe was nearly empty when I walked in. The bell over the door rang like a warning shot, and there he was, Mark, already seated at a corner table, nursing a half-drunk black coffee, looking like he hadn't slept in days. He didn't smile when he saw me. Just gestured to the chair across from him. I sat down. My heart was racing, but my voice stayed steady. "What is it, Mark?" He slid a small manila envelope across the table. I hesitated. "What's in this?" I asked. "The part you didn't see," he said flatly. "The part one didn't want to show you before. I thought exposing the affair would be enough. But I realized if I left this out, I'd be no better than them." My fingers trembled as I opened the envelope. Inside was a USB. "What's on it?" "Security footage. From the hotel. The day before you caught them." I blinked. "Why would that matter?" "Because you weren't the first person to find out," he said. "You were the second." He leaned back and let the silence settle. Then he added, "Matthew saw them that day. He followed Colin there." My throat closed. "What?" Mark nodded. "Your son. He must have had suspicions. Maybe more than he could explain. He took a bus downtown. Went straight into that lobby. I only know because I caught it on the external feed I pulled. He walked right past the front desk. Sat across from them in the hotel cafe. For 10 minutes. I felt like the air had been punched out of my lungs." "He watched them?" Mark nodded. "They didn't even notice. They were laughing, touching hands, acting like teenagers. And Matthew just sat there. Watching. Then he left. Quietly. No confrontation. Nothing." My mind reeled. "He never told me. He never said a word." "He was trying to protect you," Mark said. "The same way you tried to protect him." I stared down at the USB, bow rising in my throat. All this time I thought I'd caught the betrayal early. That I'd managed to confront it before it infected everything. But my stepson, my son in every way that mattered, had already seen it happen. He'd been walking around with that burden. Alone. "He's just a kid," I whispered. "He shouldn't have had to carry that." Mark's voice softened for the first time. "None of us should have had to." I left the cafe with the USB burning a hole in my pocket and a heaviness in my chest that I couldn't shake. That night, after Caleb went to bed, I sat beside Matthew on the couch. "I want to ask you something," I said gently. "And I need you to tell me the truth." He nodded slowly. "Did you see your dad and Bella before I found out?" His eyes filled with tears immediately. "I didn't want to tell you. I thought if you didn't know, you wouldn't cry. I didn't want Caleb to cry either. I pulled him into my arms, and we cried together. No explanations. No corrections. Just grief shared. That's the moment I realized forgiveness wasn't about excusing the hurt. It was about refusing to pass it down to the people who didn't deserve to bear it. In the months that followed, I rebuilt my life not in one triumphant swoop, but inch by painful inch. I moved to a new town an hour away, where no one knew the story. Got a new job. Started therapy with both boys. We found a new rhythm: pizza Fridays, library Tuesdays, long walks with no talking required. Colin still sees Caleb every other weekend. Their bond, while bruised, is intact. I make sure of that. Matthew chose to stay with me full-time. And Bella? Last I heard, she's awaiting sentencing. Her lawyer begged for leniency, citing emotional instability. Ironic, really. The only time she showed emotion was when destroying someone else's life. As for Mark, we haven't spoken since the cafe. Sometimes I wonder if he regrets it all. If he thought revenge would heal him. I know now that it never does. But he did give me one gift, the truth. And that's where healing begins. Not in forgetting. Not in pretending. But in staring at the wreckage and saying, this is where it ends. And this is where I begin again.